Hi, this is a behavior change replication project by Ball State University students. The students that have worked on this project are Heather Payton, Sarah Bade, Danny Norris, Tara Kirchhoff, Katie Barnes, and Shannon Henderson. The study that we used in this replication was increasing physical activity through self-monitoring, goal setting, and feedback by Matthew Normand. I just want to introduce myself. I'm Heather Payton, and I'm a Ball State University student. I live in Terre Haute, Indiana, and I currently teach 7th and 8th grade social studies.
I'm Tara Kirchhoff, a Ball State University student from Greensburg, Indiana, who works as a registered behavior technician at a one-on-one ABA center serving children 2 years old to 12.
Hi, I'm Sarah Beatty. I am a Ball State student from Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I work as a registered behavior technician doing one-on-one ABA therapy, working with children from 2 to 15 years old.
Hi, I'm Katie Barnes, and I am also a Ball State University student from Indiana, and I currently work as a registered behavior technician at an ABA center serving children 2 to 12 years old.
Hi, I'm Danny Norris, and I live in Bloomington, Indiana. I work with people with disabilities for an agency that provides residential and supported employment support.
Hi, I'm Shannon Henderson. I'm a Ball State University student from Indianapolis. I currently work as a programming assistant for an ABA clinic serving children 3 to 15 years old.
The overview of our study was about excess body weight, especially with obesity, which is a problem in increasing social significance. And the weight gain is often correlated with age. Because physical activity can both decrease current body weight and prevent weight gain, it is an especially suitable target for behavioral intervention. A package intervention consisting of self-monitoring, goal setting, and feedback was used to increase the physical activity of healthy adults. A combined multiple baseline and reversal design was arranged to evaluate the effects of the intervention on the number of steps taken each day by participants, as recorded by a pedometer. The intervention increased the number of steps taken across participants, but there were no changes in participant body weight during the intervention. The results suggest that the relatively simple and low-cost intervention can be used to increase the physical activity of some adults.
The purpose of the study was to determine if a simple study reported by Van Warmer using a package intervention could increase the number of daily steps taken using self-monitoring, goal setting, and feedback. The participants of the study utilized Fitbits or pedometers with a 7-day memory to obtain daily step goals across baseline and experimental phases and permit reliability approximations of the participant reported steps total. Throughout the study, intervention integrity was monitored.
In preparation for our study, we reviewed a great deal of literature and found that it's been proven that regular physical activity plays a critical role in the prevention of several diseases that can shorten the lifespan, including obesity, heart disease, depression, and diabetes. Unfortunately, this is a risk factor that can be controlled to an extent by each individual through increased physical activity. So for many people, increasing physical activity involves a change in behavior, and that can be done through interventions like self-management and contingency management. There's a growing body of research related to self-monitoring of physical activity using a variety of techniques. These include smartphone apps, wearable activity trackers, and different tracking software. When there was a study in Sweden that sought to investigate differences between those who use self-monitoring technologies for physical activity and those who don't. And those results indicated some similarities between the two groups relative to their opinions regarding self-monitoring However, those user groups rated significantly higher than the non-user groups in the level of education, as well as physical activity. Another study evaluated the impact of self-monitoring via mobile methods, so like smartphones or tablets, on the frequency of self-monitoring, and increased energy expenditure, greater percent of weight loss, and lower BMI. And those participants were given behavioral weight loss interventions via podcast, as well as mobile monitoring devices. And though they adhered to the self-monitoring at a low rate, there were indications of positive results in that study as well. Another study we looked at focused on the relationship between self-monitoring and weight loss and exercise outcomes. But instead of technology, those participants were asked to maintain daily exercise diaries. And those results indicated those who monitor themselves consistently experienced more weight loss and exercise longer than those who didn't. A converse study found opposite results when evaluating lifestyle counseling via social media like Facebook. A group of adolescents were provided this intervention and didn't see any increases or results. So while it seems like the majority of available research is focused on adults, we did find one study that looked at the effects of self-monitoring on physical activity of school-aged children. It was very similar to the study that we did. So kiddos were given Fitbits to wear during pre-play recess time, and during those sessions, they saw improvement in physical activity of the students that wore those fitness trackers.
All right, next to talk about the methods. Our setting was different for all participants. We could record stuff while we were at work, while we were running errands, walking our dog, even during workout. We wore our time we woke up to the time we went to bed and counted all those steps. For participants, it was Tara, Heather, Katie, Sarah, Danny, and myself. We used a Fitbit, pedometer, and the Google Doc to keep a recorded daily step for materials. The behavior we were tracking was a step, which is defined as an activity that results in a count being recorded on a Fitbit or pedometer. The data collection as a permanent product recording system was used to record the number of steps taken each day. The number of steps taken each day was recorded through our Fitbits, and both our Fitbit and pedometer we have been demonstrated accurate and reliable. And then our design was an AB reversal design. It was used for all participants. So our study was a total of 4 weeks, which included 2 baseline weeks and 2 intervention weeks, so that we could test if our intervention had an impact on the amount of steps we took.
For our baseline, all participants wore their Fitbits and pedometers with opaque tape over it. And they signed their names across the seam and the tape to verify that there were no tampering prior to each reliability check. Once per week, the group met and recorded their daily totals using the Fitbit 7-day memory feature and our daily total step reading from the pedometer. The treatment phases of our methods were during the intervention phase, all participants wore their Fitbits, masks, and reported their daily step totals once per day to the group. In response, each participant provided a brief statement that either praised each group member for attaining their goal for the day or encouraged each group member if they did not meet their goal for that day. Participants also received vocal feedback that consisted of group members commenting on the direction of the data points or providing praise for increased physical activity, and graphic feedback showing a single time series graph depicting each participant's performance to date during our weekly group meeting. Our intro observer agreement was calculated for all days that steps were measured, except in those cases when more than a week passed between face-to-face meetings, as the Fitbit memory stores only 7 days of step data. agreement scores were calculated by dividing the number of agreements by the number of disagreements plus agreements and multiplying by 100 to yield a percentage. For the daily self-monitoring and peer feedback components, reliability was measured by dividing the number of days each participant reported steps taken divided by the total number of intervention days and multiplied by 100 to determine a percentage.
All right, now I'll go over the individual results. For my baseline average, which was week 1, was 5,261 steps. The range for that baseline was from 146 steps to 10,117. The second phase, which was the goal setting, self-monitoring, feedback, week 2, I had an average of 5,199. And then my range was from 2,050 steps to 9,594. And then week 3 went back to baseline, and I had an average of 5,914 steps and a range of 3,786 to 8,765. And then our last week my average was 6,800 and then the range was 3,432 to 10,526. And in conclusion, while doing the study, I came to the conclusion that during the intervention, I was more aware of my steps and trying to meet my goal, but it truly depended on my day if I met my goal or not. My job keeps me walking around a lot, but sometimes I'm sitting at a desk working on my computer. So if that day I was sitting at my desk more at work, or I wasn't working and I didn't have anything planned for the day, I didn't necessarily go out of my way to meet my goal. While the encouragement and the praise was nice, it didn't necessarily motivate me to want to go outside and work more to get my steps in, especially if it was raining outside or if it was cold outside. And now hello. And next is Heather with her results.
Yes, this is Heather, and my individual results were during baseline 1 average, I had 8,861 steps, and my range was 2,105 to 19,919. That was my first week. My second week, which was my first week of treatment, my average steps were 7,506. And the range that week was 5,207 to 10,253. In my third week, I was back to baseline, the second baseline, and the average there was 8,549 steps. Baseline 2 range was 3,712 to 15,763. And then in my last week in treatment phase number 2, my average amount of steps was 6,257, and the range was 3,458 to 10,102. And I kind of wanted to go over what I concluded with my individual results. When I looked over everything and was looking at my steps, I came to the conclusion that my personal data really depended a lot on my schedule, whether I had steps that were increasing or decreasing. For me, praise, encouragement, any of those things, they really don't work for me, especially if I just don't have time in my day. I noticed that during baseline 1 and baseline 2 that I had more steps than I did in my intervention phases, and I believe that has a lot to do with what was going on in my life with work or things that I had to do after work. And I think a lot of it has to do with what I was doing at my job or at home. And for me, I do not think that giving praise or encouragement is something that works for me.
Okay, this is Katie, and these are my results for our study. The first week average, which is baseline 1, was 7,807 and ranged anywhere from 4,406 steps to 11,831 steps through that time period. The second week was feedback 1, and my average was 7,546, and my range for that week was between 5,296 to 9,693. The third week, baseline 2, and my average for that week was 8,453, and my baseline for that week was 5,837 through 13,566. The final week was feedback 2, and my average for that week was 10,439, and my range for that week was between 9,542 and 11,562. After completing this study, I determined that praise and motivation were not huge motivators for me. My steps varied from day to day. During the week, my step count was higher because I was on my feet 7 hours a day and went to the gym a few of those evenings. My job keeps me moving and on my feet constantly. Each day was different, and my motivation was pretty much based on how tough or tiring of a day I had at work. On the long days, I wasn't very motivated to get in any more steps than I already had. On the weekends, my step count tended to be somewhat lower. My step count did increase each week, and by the end of the third week, it was getting closer to my goal of 10,000 steps.
This is Tara, and these are my results for the replication of the Norman article. For baseline 1, my average steps per day was 9,424, and my steps ranged from 4,185 to 12,416 for that week. For feedback 1, my average steps per day was 10,163, and my steps ranged from 6,553 to 12,308. For baseline 2, my average for the week was 10,342, and my steps ranged from 9,455 to 11,185 steps per day. Lastly, for feedback 2, my average steps for the week was 10,118 and ranged from 10,146 to 10,814. After completing our study, I came to the conclusion that although praise and encouragement was nice to receive throughout the day, it was not a big motivator for me to push myself to complete my personal goal for the week. I was able to maintain my steps during the 3 weeks of the implementation part of the study, but it didn't rise or fall during that period. It stayed close to 10,000 steps per day. I found that during the weekend, my steps would decrease due to not moving 7 hours out of the day like I would during my work days. I concluded for myself that encouragement and praise does not play an indicator in my steps for the day or personal goal for the week. However, I do feel like if it was individuals that I knew or saw on a daily basis that was giving me encouragement and praise, that it would make an increasing difference.
Hi, this is Sarah. For my first week for the baseline 1, my average was 9,467 steps. For my baseline 1 range, it was 6,053 steps to 13,021 steps. For the second week, for the feedback 1, my average was 10,116 steps, and for the range, it was 5,231 steps to 13,905 steps. For our baseline 2 average, it was 11,213 steps, and for the baseline 2 range, it was 2,935 steps to 17,475 steps. For the final week, which would have been the feedback 2 week, the average was 8,914 steps, and the feedback 2 range was 2,984 steps to 13,207 steps. Overall, I found that praise and encouragement was not nearly as motivating as doing a preferred activity. Along with this, my schedule was a huge contributor to how many steps I successfully completed. For part of the study, I was at a work conference in which I could not move for hour sessions at a time. On the other hand, at work itself, my amount of steps were greatly determined by the clients I was scheduled with and whether or not they had negative behaviors or if I had to, what I had to do during certain parts of the day. If I was with a client in which was motivated to run and play, I would always hit my 10,000 step personal goal during the workday. However, if I was with a more academic, more stationary client, I would maybe hit 5,000 steps in a day. On the weekends, I found my numbers always dropped significantly. I typically do most of my schoolwork at this time, so I am not moving much.
Hi, this is Danny, and my results for the baseline average were 6,076 steps, and my baseline range was 3,540 steps to 8,578 steps. For the first feedback intervention phase, my average dropped to 5,627 steps, with my range going from 2,986 to 8,312 steps. For the second baseline phase, my average steps were 7,043 steps, and they ranged from 2,865 steps to 12,089 steps. And then for the final stage, the second feedback phase, my average again dropped to 5,292 steps, ranging from 3,749 steps to 8,624. My overall conclusions were pretty similar to the other participants. In reviewing the data, the average number of steps was actually lower during the intervention than the baseline. And while I enjoyed receiving feedback and encouragement, I'm probably more self-motivated by goal setting. I was more cognizant of my activity level during the intervention period, but the actual results were really more driven by my schedule and my obligations for the day. My current job requires a lot of time at my desk, and my children are involved in a variety of activities, so I spend most evenings driving them around, and then I come home and do coursework. I did find myself trying to creatively squeeze in additional activity to try to meet my goal, and I want to continue that. For instance, I can make work calls on my cell instead of on the landline. I can walk around the block at the same time, or discovering new paths near my children's activities.
As a group, we had an overall conclusion And the question was asked, did our group agree with whether the study worked? The original study suggested that goal setting, self-monitoring, praise, and encouragement successfully helped the participants increase their steps. Overall, looking at our group's replicated study, we have come to the conclusion that as a group, the study, including praise, encouragement, self-monitoring, and goal setting, did not necessarily produce the same results for our group members as it did in our replicated study as the participants in the original study had concluded. In our replicated study, we saw a trend in our work or activity schedules, limiting what steps we were taking each day, and that encouragement, praise, self-monitoring, and goal setting did not effectively help our participants in taking more steps daily to reach goals.
Overall, with any study, there's going to be some limitations. For our particular set of participants, there were multiple limitations. There were schedules, families, work, school, additional activities, and we are all motivated by different principles. For instance, I'm more motivated to lay on the couch after work. For others, it might be something else. For some of our participants, it was families, driving our kids around or having to go help parents or something of that sort. Our work schedules are a huge determiner as well. All of us, or at least most of us, work full-time jobs. We can't necessarily keep that or come home and work out as well. And finally, school is a huge contributor as well. We all have important assignments that we take or tests you can't stand up and move around for, and other additional activities. And finally, our references. We have some references in which you can check out.
And that concludes our study.